So, Ira, what inspired you to start Optimum Strategies back in 2010? And how has your purpose evolved since then?
Well, when I started the company, I did it from the standpoint of my own personal experience because when I was the managing partner of our firm in North Jersey, I had the opportunity to merge firms in, and indeed, we did our own merger upwards. And what I felt that I couldn't access was a resource who had been through what I had been through and had been a managing partner of a firm and could have some common ground with me. I was pleased with our attorney, more than pleased with our attorney, and certainly relied on facilitators to bring me transactions. But there was nobody who understood the issues that I had to cope with as a managing partner. And so when I decided to start the company, I decided to fill the void that I experienced for myself. And it's been a tremendously gratifying experience to be able to work with managing partners and leadership of CPA firms and for them to rely on me because they know that I understand what they're going through and that for me, it's not a textbook answer. It's the situation which requires answering all the what ifs and how do you get through those what ifs. And that's why I started it way back when. And the what ifs have only grown over time because the business world has become more sophisticated and more complicated. And the reliance on data has become even more of a necessity. But at the same token, my ability to bond and understand and having had my own clients as a partner in a firm, I know exactly what goes through the minds of people on both sides of the table. And that's what drove me to start it. And that's what keeps me excited about doing it every day because the mission is how do you help people?
So, you just mentioned the excitement that you still have for being in this industry. After spending so much time working with accounting professionals, what else is it about the profession that, gives you energy and makes you still feel rejuvenated and interested in pursuing and helping these CPA firms with their long-term goals?
When I was practicing, my motivation was all about helping people. And what I see today, both in terms of running my own company and interacting with friends and colleagues, is that running a business has become that much more complicated. So, in order for me to be an asset, I have to help these CPA firms be the best they could do in so many non traditional areas. And the profession has just evolved and continues to evolve beautifully. Depending on the size of the firm, that firm could provide the solutions internally, or sometimes they have to go externally to get the solutions. But from the day that I started in the profession to today, the CPA has been the quarterback for the financial life of mostly businesses and generally high net worth people. And so, as those complexities continue to twist, it's just exciting to be able to be there as the quarterback and make things happen. It's an action packed type of profession.
And talk about like what kind of outcome feels like a win to you and how do you define success for a client?
Well, it depends upon what my calling is in that particular situation. So I'm fortunate in that I focus in a variety of ways. A good amount of the work that I do is in the M&A and succession field, but I do a lot of performance related work as well. So in the course of a year, I'm working with managing partners on how they make their businesses better. How do they connect more effectively with the members of their team, whether it be their partners, whether it be their executive team or the accounting staff. What is it that they can do to make the business a better business? And so my gratification comes depending upon where I'm focused. If it's in the performance side, if we can create a model where people can work less hours and be more creative for their clients and be more on top of challenge for their clients, that is an enormously wonderful outcome. And you do that by understanding what these firms do best and how they can do better with what they are doing well. And so my gratification comes when a year to a year and a half later, I can see, and those clients will say to me, those changes have made a tremendous impact, not just for me, but for my partners and our clients and our staff. Our turnover rate is down, our profitability is up, and we're just more excited about being in the office. And there are many situations that start with my doing a diagnostic and coming back to the leadership group and saying, you have advantages here that you're just not parlaying.
Mm.
You need to be able to focus. So if it's on the performance side, that's where it goes. If it's on the M&A and succession side, I really love starting with the clients from the ground up. There's a tremendous fascination with the ability to do a transaction. There's so many going on, so people feel they're being left out unless they explore. But when I can work with a client and point out to them where they would gain advantage by talking to particular firms or making changes ahead of time, that to me allows them to get their best possible outcome. So when I see that they are serious and they pay attention to the recommendations and they make a tremendous effort, that is extremely exciting. And then over time, when they do meet the right parties and they have the right kind of conversations, which are very holistic conversations, they're not just restricted to the numbers. The numbers are critically important. No accountant is going to do a transaction without being comfortable with the numbers, but it's the culture, it's the chemistry, it's the mission that really drives it. And when it is that right conversation, the numbers become easy, and then I'll have somebody say to me a year to 18 months later, this was the best thing I ever did. And that is a wonderful statement to hear. And thankfully, we hear it a lot.
That certainly sounds rewarding for both you and your clients, all the clients who you've worked with. But let's get specific. Can you share a story of a client engagement where your work, whether, as you mentioned, it's a merger or a performance improvement or a succession plan for a firm, it really truly transformed the firm's path? Can you talk a little about a specific engagement where that has happened?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And there's many, so I have to sort of sort it out in my mind. But I will share with you two stories that relate to an M&A situation. And one is a real situation that we really don't control. We
Mhm.
all know in life, you can't control disability and death. And I had a situation where I was brought in, a particular partner who was the last partner standing was the last partner standing because one of his partners died in the last year and the other partner had the onset of Alzheimer's.
Oh, goodness.
So a three partner firm became a solo practitioner. And when I met that partner, he was a mess. He just could not endure that situation. And I met him at the beginning of a tax season. And I was able within 30 days to align him with another firm who staged a transaction and basically saved his life. And together, the successor firm and all of his people, by the way, this is now 10 years later, all of his people are still there. The gentleman did retire 2 years later, but happily, because he would not have had the ability to do that. He would have had to walk away. And that was extraordinarily gratifying. It was wonderful for all parties involved. So that's a case where life interferes with the best laid plans. The other situation I'll tell you is that I work with many firms that have 20 to 50 people, and they are extraordinarily frustrated by their inability to deliver more to the client, that they're just so stressed out and they feel that they could be doing more and could be doing better. And their commitment to their clients is just as if they were family. And rather than looking at their clients as a series of transactions, they look at it as if they can do and need to do more for their family. And I can think of a four partner firm who was doing an outstanding job of being responsive, but wearing themselves out. And it was becoming difficult for them in their own family lives. Thankfully, it was not a physical health issue, but we were able to introduce them to a firm about three times their size. And the comment that I saw 6 months into the deal was, "Oh my God, what we're now delivering to our clients." And this was for partners who were not going to retire anytime soon. They wanted to be able to enjoy what being a CPA was all about, and they couldn't because of the inability to find staff, the inability to pivot enough. And now we're talking about a number of years later, and they'll say to me, "We should have done this 10 years earlier." So that's a real life success story on the M&A side. On the performance side, I can tell you that the first performance diagnostic I ever did, I went in and visited with a very successful firm and took a look at their metrics and saw that their metrics were so below par for their skill set. And the managing partner, who's a very astute person, said to me, "But I check all of our metrics comparing it to national surveys." And I said to them, "Well, that's only the beginning. How well do you know what goes on in your own backyard?" And he says, "Well, I don't know that." And I said, "Those surveys have particular geographic bias. They don't include a number of firms to the level of your neighborhood." And he was shocked. And I suggested to him that he was materially off, and he was struck by that.
Mm.
He said, "I have to process this." And I left, not knowing whether I had insulted the man. And an hour later, he called me up and he said, "Ira, I just want you to know, as soon as you left, I called a meeting with my three other partners, and we've now set in motion a process to raise our fees across the board, fire clients that really shouldn't have been here, but we're too nice at what we do." And
Mm.
a year later, their metrics and performance was lights out. And they're able to stand the test now of remaining independent because they have that much more profit on the table. They're able to pay their people better. And as a result, retain their people for a longer period of time. So those are very much stories that come to mind and are very, very heartwarming.
That's interesting. That's certainly a variety of experience that you've endured with some of these CPA firm leaders. So, what do you think it is about the support that you provide that they tend to value most when working with you?
Well, I've never been one to be bashful. And my approach is very direct but respectful. And what I know in working with my clients is they put a lot of stock in the fact that I will not tell them what they want to hear. I will tell them what they need to hear.
Mhm.
And they also place tremendous value on the fact that I've sat in their chair.
Yeah.
I've told clients that the fees don't work. I've told clients that they're going to have to handle their taxes differently. I've told clients what they had to do with their estate plan. I've been down the path that they have, and that makes my ability to help them that much more efficient and effective. And I'm very confident that if you surveyed my clients, that's the flavor of comment that they would give you. And that really thrills me. It tells me that my life's work continues to bring benefit.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing. A final question, a little bit more possibly on the technical side, but when a deal is in motion, what's the one thing that you're always watching out for?
Well, I'm watching out for the nature of language and conversation that's going on. If I see, number one, that there's an extended length of break in time between conversation, it begins to concern me that we're not going to end up where some party wants to be. That if somebody wants to sell, they're not going to sell. And if somebody wants to buy, they're not going to be the buyer. So the length of time in that communication and the nature of the dialogue. Are the questions now changing to the level that we're getting into the ability for someone to walk away? Was somebody hunting for something to allow them to walk away? And when you're working on a transaction, you never want to rush it. But at the same token, transactions are not like wine. They don't get better over time. They have to be addressed within a proper time frame, and you have to be very attentive to the pace of the conversation and the kind of things that are being stressed in the dialogue. In the beginning, everybody wants to make a great impression, but as things go on, are they getting hung up and looking for those excuses to walk away?
Yeah.
I pay a lot of attention to that. And sometimes it makes sense to walk away, but you've got to be alert to it and see whether it's a grounded excuse or it's a made up excuse.